Hello everyone, welcome to Craft Apple today. My name is Caroline and we are about 3 weeks away from Valentine's Day. So I have come up with a list of projects that will be fun to make and perhaps give as gifts. So this is a video to make this pair of earrings. They're made with 12 millimeter heart beads that are made of mother of pearl and 6 millimeter pink crystal beads, 4 millimeter red crystal beads, and 8/0 seed beads, as well as beading thread and ear wires. So there is also a pin version of this earring that I have a video tutorial for. So if you don't want to make it with thread and you've got pliers at home and you want something that's going to be a little stiffer, a little longer lasting, then you can go find the pin video for the pin version. I am going to have kits for both of these styles of earring available on my Etsy website shortly. So I will link those listings down in the description. Your kit will come with all of the beads that you need, the ear wires that you will need, the thread that you will need, and a beading needle. So all you will need at home is a pair of scissors. In order to complete this project, you are going to need to have sufficient eyesight to see the holes in the beads and see the eye of the needle. That's the hole at the top of the needle. You're going to have some manual dexterity. That means you're going to be able to move and wiggle your fingers and your wrists. You're going to have to be able to pick up the beads and pick up the needle. You're going to have to be able to thread the needle. And you'll have to tie some knots, which means you're going to have to pick up the thread and be able to move those to tie the knots. So if you have those skills, then there is no reason whatsoever why you can't complete this project. And if your kids have those skills, along with the patience to, complete the project and watch the video, there's no reason why they can't do it either. My guess would be that if your child is 10 years old or older, that they could do this. And there probably are a few kids out there younger than that who could also do this. As a parent, you probably know your kids better than I do and can make that call. Or if you're a child and you're watching this and you're wondering if you can do it, you know your skills better than I do. If you are confident, then go for it. Alrighty, let's get started on this project. I'm going to turn my camera around facing down so that you can see my work, and I will be back with you momentarily. Alright everyone, I've got my camera turned down at my work now, and I've got all of my supplies. Well, I've got the string in my hand, but I've got all the rest of the supplies in my little blue bucket here. I've got my beading needle. I've got my two 12 millimeter mother of pearl hearts. I've got my two pink 6 millimeter beads, my two red 4 millimeter beads, my two ear hooks, and I should have 6 little 8/0 clear seed beads in here. So to get these started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my ear wires, if I can keep it from flying away, and I'm going to thread my thread through the ring here. And when I have a little bit out, a few inches, like maybe 4 inches, I'm going to tie a slip knot. And I am going to do that like so. I've got the long end of my string down here. I've got my string draped around my 4 fingers, and I'm got my thumb kind of pinching the string between my forefinger, my index finger, and my thumb. And I've got the short end in my right hand, which is my good hand. And I am going to kind of loop the string around my index finger and lay the short end across the other string to make an X. And you can see I've got my loop down here. And I'm going to make the loop smaller. I'm going to make it, whoops, I dropped it. So again, I'm looping it across and I'm making kind of an X shape. I've still got my ear wire hanging off the loop down here. I want this not on my finger, so I want to be able to keep it crossed and just kind of pinch the X, whoops, between my thumb and forefinger, which as you can see is kind of tricky to do. It's kind of hard to hold on to. But we're going to do that for two reasons. The first reason is so that we don't have problems with our beads coming off our string while we're working. And the second reason is so that we can use that end to tie a knot when we're all done. And this keeps falling off because there is a small gap right here in the ear hook where it makes a loop. And so it just keeps falling right back off. It didn't the first time I tried this. But I imagine y'all don't have pliers at home, so you can't fix it, so I'm not going to fix it either. But I'm going to have about a 5-inch tail here, and I'm, looping over to make my X at the apex of my index finger. Then I'm going to take this tail end, and I'm going to poke it through my circle from the back side. And see how it's kind of making a loop there? I'm going to grab the loop and I'm going to keep it a loop. So I'm poking my loop through. I have pinched my short thread against the edge of the loop, and I'm going to twirl it so that the loop goes to the inside. So this is my inside loop. I'm going to grab it while I still have my tail down here, my small end, and I'm going to try and, oh boy, I'm going to do it again, folks. Ah, shoot. So you can see this takes a minute. So I'm going to give myself, 4 or 5 inches here. I'm making that X across the outside of my finger. So my short end is on top of the long end to make the X. I'm going to now I've grabbed my short end, and I'm going to allow some slack to be between my two hands, like an inch or so of slack, and I'm going to grab the edge of the loop with my right hand and kind of tuck that loop in through. And I'm going to grab it with my right hand. And I'm going to, then I'm going to transfer that loop back to my right hand, and I'm going to pull on my long end. And that has formed a slip knot now. I can put my two ends together and tighten that up. And I can pull on this long end all day long, and that knot isn't going anywhere. But if I pull on this short end, that knot is going to come right undone, which is what we want, so that I can tie a different kind of knot in the end around that ear wire at the end of my project. So now I'm going to take the other end of my thread, and we're going to thread our needle. So here's the needle, and you can see it's got a hole in one end and it's pointy at the other end. And we need to get this thread through the hole in that needle. So one thing that helps do that is if you get the end of this wet, I just kind of lick the end. And then if you take your thumb and forefinger and press it and then slide the thread out from between there, it helps all of the little fibers in there stick together. And then it's just a matter of lining it up square with the hole and kind of sticking it through there. And it might take a couple of tries, but there you go. So I'm going to pull that so that I've got, several inches down here. I don't need a ton of tail through there, but I don't want it coming unthreaded either. All right, so we are starting at the top of the earring, and we're just gonna thread the beads on, starting from the top. So we're gonna put on 3 seed beads, and then this red one, then the pink one, then the heart one, and then this locking bead down here. And then we're gonna go right back through, and then tie a knot. So let's do that in slow motion so y'all can follow. So we're going to put on our 3 8/0 seed beads, the clear ones. 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to put on my red bead. Then I'm going to put on my pink bead. And now I'm kind of running out of room on my needle, so I'll let those kind of fall down. They're not just going to fall by themselves. I have to kind of push them over the eye. I'm just kind of pushing them into the palm of my hand, and then I'm going to close my hand around them and pinch the eye of my needle again. When I bead these, I want to pinch the eye of the needle so that my thread isn't moving. Now I'm going to put on my heart bead, and I'm going to put on my heart bead puffy end first. And I'm going to put that into my hand as well. Then I'm going to put on my other seed bead, my 4th one. And I am going to now move all of the beads except that last seed bead into my other hand and kind of work it down away from my hand a little bit. So now it's just like, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches away from my ear hook. And I'm going to put my needle alongside my thread. And I'm going to let this one come off the eye of my needle now. Now I'm going to pinch the eye of my needle and my long thread together. And I have to go back through all of these beads, so I'm going to I'm putting some tension on this line just by grabbing it down by the ear hook and pulling it tight against my other hand. And I'm going to line up the point of my needle with my thread so that it's all like one continuous thread, and I'm just gonna push / allow to fall all of these beads onto my needle like that. So I'll show you that again. I've got my needle here, and I'm making sure that that string is in line with it all the way around. Of course, it's wiggling as I'm trying to move my hands to show you that it's lined up, but it's lined up there. I've got some tension on my string. I'm doing that by having the string pinched with the needle down here between my thumb and forefinger, and the string up here between my thumb and forefinger. And I'm kind of lifting this end up and allowing gravity to just kind of, I missed the needle. So I'm going to work my fingers down here farther. So there I got the first one lined up with the point of the needle, and I'm just gonna slide them. It worked a lot better the first time. And the reason why I'm doing it this way instead of just kind of heading my needle back through is I don't really want the needle to pierce this beading thread. It's a lot of little tiny fibers in there, and if I cross through the thread, it's gonna make it really hard to get the beads to slide. It's just going to knot up in there. So now I've got this big loop down here with my one seed bead in it, and at the other end I've got the end that's attached to my ear wire, and I've got the end that's attached to the needle, and I got my fingers draped through the loop like this, and I'm just going to pull on my needle end until everything cinches up. And you can see immediately it's cinched up so that the bead wad, wad works, the bead wad cinched up to the ear wire. And now I'm slowly just pulling the slack out, and my finger's just kind of acting like a pulley or something. So when I get so that I can't put my finger in there anymore, I'm going to put my finger on this bead right here, the heart bead, and continue to pull my needle. And now they're all tight there. Okay, at this point, I'm going to grab the long end of my string, and I'm going to undo my slip knot by pulling on the short end. Zoop! And now I'm going to tie a triple knot. So I'm going to use my short end to do the moving. So here I'm going to allow the thing to cross so that the short end is over the long end, coming from the left, from my left. And then I've got a loop, see, and I've crossed my left string over my right string, or my short string over my long string, and then I'm going to tuck this end through the loop. Come here, you. And just grab it. So now there's one side of it, and we're going to cinch it down. We're not going to go too crazy tight, just so that it's snug. Now I'm going to do the same thing, except my short end is on the right side now, so I'm going to cross it over on top of the long string, right over left, and then tuck the string from back behind through the loop and grab it, and again tighten it up so it's snug. And then this time my short end is on the left, so I'm going to cross short one over long one, left over right, and tuck that thread through the loop from the back side and snug it up. Uh-oh, it didn't do it. Okay. Now, I've still got my needle threaded down here on my long end, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my long end and I'm going to thread it back through all of these beads except for this one here. And this time I can't do that trick I did before, but I'm going to use the point of my needle. I'm going to point, as I'm going back through there, I'm going to tip my needle up like this, so that it's scraping along the inside of the beads on the top side. And hopefully that is going to keep my needle from snagging the thread inside the column of beads. So I'm just working my way back through. Okay. And I had to kind of move this bead out of the way a little bit in order to let my needle come through. I'm going to grab that and pull on it, and if I'm talented, when I pull on this, it might pull the knot that's there at the top. It might pull the knot, yep, down into the column of beads, so now I am not even seeing the knot. And then I'm just going to snip the thread down here as close as I can get to the bead. I put some tension on that string too. Put some tension on the string when I cut it, so it will snap back up inside this bead here and you won't be able to see it. Now I'm going to get rid of this thread the same way. I'm actually going to have to unthread my needle to do this, so I'm taking the needle off my long thread and I'm going to thread the short thread. I just got my tips of my fingers wet in my mouth, and now I'm going to pinch this between my thumb and forefinger to get it all nice and flat and get all the fibers all together. And I'm going to thread my needle again. I'm going to try and get those all lined up nice. Line up my string with the hole and then just kind of poke it through. And this time my thread is not cooperating, and that's because it's all fuzzy. You probably can't tell, but it's all fuzzy at the end. So I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to snip it off a little bit in hopes that it'll be less frizzy. Get it lined up and try and poke it through the eye of the needle. Didn't get it wet that time. And you can see mine frizzed all apart. So that's a normal, natural thing. It's going to happen. I And you'll notice that it becomes kind of flat, like dental floss can be flat. And you want to make sure that it's skinny up and down the same way that the eye of your needle is skinny up and down. That's going to help it to go through the eye of the needle. If it's in the same shape and orientation as the eye of your needle, then it's going to want to behave better. Okay, so this time I got most of it through there, but there's a little bit not through. If I grab just the fat end, oh shoot, I dropped it. I was gonna say, if I can grab just the fat end and pull through, sometimes that little bit of fuzz will come along for the ride. It'll kind of bend over and come through as well. Like so. Okay, so now I've got a little bit more string than I have length of needle. And I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. I'm going to go through all of my beads with the needle kind of pointing up towards the top of the beads in hopes that I don't snag the thread in there. And pull it through. And then I'm going to put a little tension on this string and snip it off as well. So there, we've done one. And in order to do the second one, all you've got to do is go back to the beginning of the video and watch again. So I'll let you go ahead and do that, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks for joining me today.